Once upon a time, there was a game called Resident Evil. It sold really well, warranting a sequel. The end. But this is a sequel that has a very interesting reputation. Despite the general consensus of this being a very good game, unlike most video game sequels, I hear as many people say that this is a step down from RE1 as much as people saying this is the best game in the series. Today, we try to dive into why this is the case, and maybe try to get a deep understanding of both sides of the argument. Welcome, retro gamers, to Take It or Leave It. Okay, so I do need to explain a few things to my pre-existing audience on what my plans are for the next few videos. So, if you are one of, hopefully, many newcomers, I recommend skipping to this time right here to get to the part where I actually start talking about Resi 2. If not, well, get ready to hear me talk about a bunch of non-related RE stuff that you may or may not give a shit about. So the previous video I did was on Spyro 3, and at the end I announced a poll. This poll gave you guys the option to pick between 3 games: Resident Evil 2, Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, and Donkey Kong Country. Obviously the one that, well, won was good ol' RE2. I will be completely honest that this was the game that I expected to see win the most by far. My review of the first game has quickly become my biggest video with 12,000 views at this point in time. This video is entirely responsible for skyrocketing my sub count from 70 to 200 in just a month. This video gave me the audience I have right now, and I imagine that this video was what the majority of my subscribers have been waiting for a year at this point. So what are my plans? Well, you Resi fans are in for a treat, because I'm not just going to do 2 and stop. This is going to be a trilogy of videos. The next 3 major episodes of Take It or Leave It will be Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and Resident Evil Survivor. Why stop there? Because this is the rest of the PS1 Resident Evil games, so I might as well do the rest in one go at this point. Finally, to those people that voted either Sly1 or DKC1, don't worry because I will cover them at some point. I'm doing it in order of most votes to least amount of votes. So in 1 to 2 years, Sly Cooper will be covered next. Without further ado, let's actually get into what you guys have come for. Capcom had a lot to live up to with the overwhelming success of their survival horror game, Resident Evil. It's obviously no surprise that there would be a sequel soon enough. This time, instead of having Mikami direct the game, they instead got Hideki Kamiya to direct it. I think I should make my terrible Japanese pronunciations at this point just a character trait of mine. One of the goals was to give the sequel more of a movie quality feel to the story, and so they got to work. But the original version of RE2 was not quite like the original version that we know now. This fact is something that basically every Resident Evil fan in the world knows. Long story short is that this game was initially Resident Evil 1.5. Thank God that name was changed because it sounds like shit. 1.5 was more than halfway through completion until they scrapped it. Hence why this game came out 2 years after the first one. This was back when 2 years to develop a game was considered a long time. The reason that this 1.5 version was scrapped was because of the devs simply not feeling satisfied with what they made. They thought that the atmosphere from the first game wasn't quite there and that the modern look of the new police station setting looked too sterile. It simply didn't feel like Resident Evil. To be fair, when you actually look at gameplay footage of 1.5, yeah, these police station pre-rendered backgrounds do look pretty fucking bland. So I really do respect them a ton for going back to the drawing board and making something way more in line with Resident Evil. I can't imagine just how hard of a decision it was to scrap something that you and your team worked on for months. So they got to work on redoing this project, and finally, after almost 2 years of build-up, the long-awaited Resident Evil 2 was released on January 21st, 1998. Luckily, all of this anticipation paid off massively, not just for sales, but also for critical acclaim. To this day, there are still plenty of people out there that consider this to be the best game in the series. Now, I used to keep my true feelings for a game secret until the very end of the video, but now I kind of just prefer to spill the beans at the beginning, and that's probably something that I'm going to continue doing. So, do I think that this is the best Resident Evil game? No. Absolutely fucking not. This is still a very good game, and I guess I prefer this over the first one, but this is my very first time touching this game for like well over 2 years. Back then, I thought this game was great. Playing it now, it's a little less good than I remember it being. It's a little bit more flawed than I expected. But this is still good, and I can't wait to share my opinions with you guys. So, let's stop lollygagging and creak open that door and, load our Matilda and venture into Resident Evil 2. I'm trying to come up with new transitions, I really am.
Resident Evil 2.
We begin with a short recap of what happened in the first game before introducing us to our two new main characters, Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield, sister of Chris from the first game. Leon is on his way to the Raccoon City police station for his first day on the force, until he runs into a dead body in the middle of the road. He goes to investigate only to be swarmed by zombies. Meanwhile, Claire is in the same place, but for different reasons. She is looking for her brother Chris. She makes it to a diner and encounters a zombie herself. Claire notices a nearby exit and opens the door to reveal Leon on the other side. Leon kills the zombie behind Claire and suggests that they go to the police station. They make it to the police car and drive off. They then tell each other about what they are here for, and then their car is crashed into by a truck driven by someone who is transforming into a zombie after being bit not long before Leon and Claire showed up. They both get out of the car, and since it crashed against a wall, they are now both separated from each other, with the rest of the story depending entirely on who you pick first. Leon's story is that he finds this mysterious woman named Ada. Claire's story is that she finds a helpless little girl and she tries to protect her. Both stories involve the new G virus, an updated version of the T virus, the virus that turns people into zombies. That's at least the very brief summary of what the story is. There's multiple characters, twists and turns, and overall the story has way more to it compared to the first one, where it was just a simple escape story with extra lore sprinkled in if you are to read the files. Here, it is still kind of an escape story, but the lore stuff is more present in cutscenes. Personally, I think that this story is pretty good. The choice to also remove any live-action cutscenes to replace them with CG animated FMVs, while it did take away from some of the first game's charm, feels more fitting for the style of Resident Evil's presentation. All of the new characters are pretty cool if you ask me. I like the cutscene where Ada is introduced for the first time, and how she seems off right from the get-go. Chief Irons is also a very interesting character who seems normal from the start, but then turns out to be involved with Umbrella and just a sick, twisted individual in general, who killed the mayor's daughter for disturbing reasons. Sherry is a very sympathetic character, and Annette... Oh, okay, I lied. Not every character is cool. Annette is the exception. She's an idiot in this game. This story is definitely an improvement over the first one in every way, as well as voice acting. Slightly. I see a lot of people out there praising this game's voice acting for being a ginormous improvement over the first games. But to me, I mean, yeah, the voice acting is definitely better, but
Not by much.
Now sure, I think that the casting was good, all of the voices match the overall look and feel of the characters perfectly, and the actors certainly tried. However, even though there aren't as many hilariously terrible delivered lines as there were in RE1, RE2 still has some lines that are pretty badly delivered.
There's a gun inside.
What's wrong? Buckle up.
Okay, you're a cop, right? There must be some way to stop it.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
Ada!
Now I found out something interesting behind the first game's voice acting and why it was so bad. Apparently the actors in the first game were given zero context with the lines they were reading, along with the person they were working with being Japanese. Obviously having the person that you have to put your trust in not having English as their first language can make communication rather difficult. Really the only instructions they were given were read this line out loud and say it multiple different ways, and we'll do the rest. When you give an actor those broad instructions, yeah, no shit you will end up with voice acting like this.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
I think that we really do take actors for granted sometimes in media. An important thing to remember is that actors need to trust the director. The director needs to properly communicate what they want from the actors. Otherwise, the actor may come out with a terrible performance due to them not knowing what the director wanted from them. If all you do is give the actors their lines and say it in multiple different ways, and leave it at that without any context, then yeah, you're practically begging on your hands and knees for the acting to suck. The only reason why I bring this up is because I bet you that this game's actors suffered the same fate, or at least still weren't being specific enough about what they wanted from them. Growing pains, you can say. But this story is still quite good. Yes, this story is extremely hard to take seriously nowadays, but at the same time, it still at least gives it this old 90s gaming charm. Getting into how this game actually feels to play, there really isn't a lot for me to bring up other than the new weapon lineup. This game still has the same tank controls that we had in the first game, so I won't explain how they work again. The zombies and the zombie dogs make a return and behave identically to how they did previously. Really, when I went back and took notes of what was in this game, I realized that this game was the safest sequel I've ever covered thus far. In a nutshell, this game, as a gameplay experience, is the first game again, with a few new bells and whistles, some things improved, and some things made worse. But I wouldn't be a proper reviewer if I simply left it at that, so let's continue. There are two major features I have for this section. The first of these is limping. In RE1, it didn't matter how much damage you took, you can always walk and run at the same speed. In RE2, they changed it to where your walking and running speed depended on how much health you had left. So if your health is fine, the speed is normal. If it's in caution, you are a tad bit slower, and the characters hunch over a little while grabbing their stomach. Then if it's in danger, you start limping and move way slower. In my most recent playthrough of this game, I had very mixed feelings on this. On one hand, it is very immersive and can be useful to tell how much health you have left, just by looking at the character animations instead of having to pull out the menu, and it certainly encourages you to get hit as little as possible. But on the other hand, the limping health stage is so slow that it can make running away from enemies that aren't zombies almost impossible to run away from if you're short on ammo. This can lead to some very cheap deaths, and it can also make traversing the maps an absolute fucking drag. The limping mechanic is still a good idea, and the easy solution to fix it is by making the danger stage not making you go so damn slow. The second thing is for me to get into the new weapons. By and large, the weapon lineup has the same idea as the first ones, especially with Leon's. We have a handgun, shotgun, and flamethrower for Leon, then we have a handgun, grenade launcher, crossbow, and spark shot for Claire. All these weapons are fun to use, and there's also a Desert Eagle, machine gun, and rocket launcher that either of these two characters can get, depending on who you play as in what scenario. There is also the knife, but this is a Resi game, so there's an 80% chance that I will hate it, and this game is no different. One cool new addition is that you can upgrade Leon's weapons, which is pretty cool. It gives you something else to keep an eye out for, and the upgraded shotgun is so fun to use.
And that will be the common theme with this game and my feelings on it. While there are things in this game that do annoy me, and things that I think the first game did do better, that doesn't stop from all the extra improvements and most of the new features going a long way. But to those who still see this as the best game in the series, I get it, but I kinda don't. If you know what I mean? But this is also where I will get more critical with this game, so buckle up, kids. This is gonna be a bumpy ride.
The gameplay is the same case here overall though, with a few new things added, a few things improved, and then a short list of things done worse. The survival elements are the same, the way you progress is the same, just with a few new differences. But like I said, there are new things here and also some things improved, and I shall go over those first. I really need to give a lot of credit to all of the new monsters, since they are all really cool, and no enemy is better used for this example than one of the most iconic monsters in Resident Evil history, the Lickers. Basically, this game's version of the Hunters, and they are really cool, since they are not just a clone of the Hunters, because the cool thing about the Lickers is that they are blind. So, if the room you're in is large enough and you aren't running or stepping on broken glass, you can sneak by them with ease. This was a very wise mechanic because unlike the Hunters, these creatures are introduced not long after you first enter the police station, so making it possible to get around them was a very smart gameplay choice. These are without a doubt some of the best monsters in the series. There's a reason why they still get put into games to this day. There's also these plant enemies at the end of the game, and they're kinda cool. Yeah.
So yeah, something that we can all agree on. RE2's enemies are all awesome. All of them. Every single one of them. Yep. Okay, there's one.
Can't forget about Mr. X, one of the most embarrassing enemies I've ever fought in a video game. He's supposed to be this big killer tyrant monster designed by Umbrella to wipe out any witnesses of this incident. But once you are facing him in a hallway, because he always faces you in hallways, you can easily run away from him and barely take any damage because he uses the exact same attack patterns in every single encounter. Get this, you run up to him, he punches you, which does almost no damage, and then he begins this ground pound move that has a laughably long wind-up animation to it, to the point where you will be able to reach another camera angle by the time he performs that move. Not to mention that he is very slow and never follows you to other rooms, aside from one time where he crashes through a wall. Such a shame that a character with a kind of scary concept ended up being such a joke in this game.
But then we get to the next big feature one-of-a-kind this game. A one-of-a-kind feature that is exclusive to just 2 and never brought back since. The A and B scenario and the zapping system.
This is not just the best part in the game, to me at least. It's also the biggest improvement from the first game. I might as well start out with the improvement since I just mentioned it. So in the first game, there was Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield. Though the default selection is Chris, don't be fooled because Jill is the far better character to play as, and the easy mode. Yeah, I got a couple of comments in my video on the first game about the fact that Chris was indeed intended as a hard mode. It said so on the original Japanese release. This is something that I didn't realize until my video was almost done, so by then it was too late. So for those who commented about this, thank you for pointing out that error of mine. Although I still don't take anything back about what I said about this being a design flaw. Why would developers ever want you to start with hard mode anyway? Also, why did the NTSC and PAL version get rid of this text? Also, my issue with Chris is not that he is the hard one, more like the frustrating one. I said it once and I'll say it again, Jill has way too many benefits over Chris for him to be fun to play as, and can make some people not bother with him in the first place. Him being hard mode isn't an excuse for him to be less fun to play as, but here comes good old Resi 2 to fix this problem by having Leon and Claire come with their own unique strengths and weaknesses. This time both have their own sub-items. Claire has the lockpick and Leon has the lighter, and both items are used an equal amount of times. Claire has a grenade launcher and crossbow, while Leon has a shotgun. The grenade launcher and crossbow are crowd control weapons, and one has better damage while the other has better distance. However, Leon's shotgun is better for up-close zombie insta-kills, and ammo is in higher supply. Leon has a flamethrower, which is great for those new plant enemies, and Claire has this zapper gun, which is great for the boss fights. And lastly, both of them come with 8 item slots. Thank you. But then we get to the zapping system, and this is some really cool shit. So after you beat the first campaign, or in this case the A scenario, it unlocks the B scenario, which is supposed to take place at the same time as the first scenario. So you are pretty much experiencing what the other character was doing while you were playing the previous scenario. The reason why this game was split into 2 discs is because Leon and Claire have their own A and B scenarios. So you don't have to do what I did and start with Leon and then come back with Claire. That's what happens if you put in Disc 1. Disc 2 contains all of Claire's content, and you can start the A scenario with her instead. This will result with her interacting with Marvin and Kendo instead of Leon, and she doesn't have Mr. X chase after her because that is a B scenario exclusive, and characters will either die in different ways or different locations altogether. But then we get into the zapping system itself, and it's really cool, and I really need to respect these people a ton by going out of their way to create what is essentially 4 separate campaigns. There is absolutely a reason to come back to this game after finishing 2 scenarios, but I'm getting off track. Zapping system. Some of the things that you do in the A scenario will affect what will happen in the B scenario. Those shutters you put down in the A scenario will eventually open up in the B scenario. The cabinet with the extra backpack and machine gun. Don't get greedy, bitch, because in the B scenario, they will be gone if you take both. But then there's the coolest one of them all. In the lab, you can get a guest account to unlock a door, but you will have to get 2 accounts logged in at the same time in order for the door to open. So, if you make an account in both scenarios A and B, you can unlock it in the B scenario and be rewarded with ammo for one of your more powerful guns. The B scenario is such a fantastic idea, and it just feels like the next step for a Resi game with 2 separate campaigns. It really feels like you are going through what the other character was doing, even if it would be more realistic if all of the halls were empty due to the other player killing all of them by then. But this is a video game, and there is such a thing as being too easy.
So this game seems pretty awesome so far, huh? If the gameplay segment ended here, you'd be right. But why don't you quickly look at the time bar of this video? Yeah, this part's not done yet, because now we get to the parts of this game that suck. Enjoy!
This will be a very short list, but still are big issues ranging from minor to major. The smallest complaint is that they for some reason changed the items in the inventory from 3D to 2D. Why did they do this? The reason why this is an issue is that them being 3D in 1 was an actual gameplay mechanic. You had to examine some items and search them to see if there were any other items hiding inside. Essentially the ability to find the true item inside of the bigger item. So them being downgraded to 2D just gives you no reason to examine the items anymore. Next is the lack of puzzles in this game. Now sure, they were pathetically easy to solve in the first game, but they were still a nice change of pace and fun to solve. If they have gotten rid of them for being too easy, I can understand, but I would have much rather they tried to up the difficulty of the puzzles rather than removing them entirely. Because no, finding the items in other rooms is not a puzzle, it's a scavenger hunt.
But then we get to the big issue of this game, and probably the main issue of this game that can make people prefer the first game altogether.
This game is too linear. Hear me out. Most of my favorite games are linear, so I know that this makes me look like a hypocrite straight from the get-go. But here's the thing. What made RE1 flow good was that it was, specifically in the Spencer Mansion, an even blend between linear and open-ended. I'm not even a fan of open-world games, but I do like having choices. Not too many choices, but choices nonetheless. It's not like RE2 is completely linear, but compared to RE1, there is a noticeable decrease in the amount of doors you can unlock in any order that you please. Whereas in the first game, one key can unlock 4 to 5 doors. Here, it's unlocking 2 to 3 doors by comparison. So it creates this more restrictive feel, and this can be a problem in normal gameplay, since if you have a room overrun by zombies, there will likely be no other options with what rooms you can go into in the meantime to get more supplies. Surprise, surprise, that very thing ended up happening to me, and the only reason I was able to overcome it was by finding some handgun bullets off screen. Unfortunately, the linearity just gets worse as the game continues. It does less of that in the lab, but still. And again, my problem isn't linear games themselves. As I said, I love me some linear games. I just have a problem with an open and linear formula being forced to be more linear. I sure do hope that I got my point across without coming off as a total idiot.
But I guess the linearity can also be blamed on the level design, so I guess we better get to that.
Although, to be fair, despite the police station not exactly being as well designed as the Spencer Mansion, RE2 at least has more of a consistent quality in level design from start to finish, so it evens things out. But me saying that one map is worse than the other is obviously not enough. So going back to the first map, there's the Raccoon City police station. Even if it is not as well designed as the Spencer Mansion due to there being less shortcuts making backtracking more annoying, the police station is still really cool and well designed. That and there is an actual history to this place. It's not just a police station that was built here for the sake of being a police station. This was originally an art museum, and the traces of that are still present, with the obvious one being the statues and the paintings placed around the station, and its very odd layout that definitely wouldn't be the layout of a real police station. When it comes to history and atmosphere, I do prefer this over the Spencer Mansion. It's just the less clever design layout that puts it down a little. Moving down to the basement, it's fine. It's structured in an extremely linear way, with next to no branching paths to speak of, but the atmosphere is great, and one of the showcases of the zapping system is used down here, so that's cool. But just like the mansion, the guardhouse was better designed. Going even further down to meet the RPD sewers. Now this map is definitely an improvement from the caves in 1 as a third map. The caves were ugly to look at and made navigating in it annoying due to everything looking the damn same. Had too many hunters and didn't have an item box at the beginning like it should. Here the sewers are easy to navigate, look nice with every new hall and room feeling different, and doesn't outstay its welcome, not to mention the giant mutant alligator down here. Now that is cool. Then we finally get to the lab, and it's a good map, and better than the lab in the first game, believe it or not. The presentation is great. When you're on these bridges, you can feel such scale and scope with this place, and the atmosphere is, once again, on point. The design is more interesting, all of the rooms have something different in them. This is a very good final map. So when it comes to individual maps, the first game wins for the Spencer Mansion, but when it comes to the quality consistency, 2 wins. I wonder how different the boss fights are gonna be.
They aren't different at all.
I really won't bother going into any detail on these boss fights because they are all mechanically the same thing. Point and shoot until they die. Sure, William Birkin, the main boss character, does get a little smarter with dodging your attacks while dealing more damage, but you can easily run away from him most of the time anyway, which is a shame since William Birkin is up there for being one of my favorite Resident Evil villains. His backstory is interesting, and seeing him mutate every time we see him is really cool and shows just how horrific the G-Virus is. I will say though, fuck Mr. X's boss fight in the B scenario. This is one of the cheapest boss fights I've ever witnessed in a video game. The funny thing is that Mr. X moves and attacks the same way the Tyrant did at the end of the first game's boss. But what made that boss fight feel doable was that it took place in a larger space, making the action to avoid being hit by him much more possible. But take that fight and put it in a tight space and it's just awful. Even if Claire's one-liner before killing this bastard was admittedly cool.
You lose, big guy.
So let us instead go to something that this game improves from the first game in every conceivable way. The first game didn't look bad with its unique way of making environments, but it definitely has dated a lot as of now when it comes to the visual presentation. So fast forward a year and a half later, and what the fuck? This game looks so good! The pre-rendered backgrounds have so much more going on this time around. It manages to maintain the idea of giving every room and hallway their own look, while making the rooms themselves feel properly lived in. I step into the RPD and I can believe that hell broke loose here, with blood and debris absolutely everywhere, as well as the exterior shots looking excellent and also show just how bad shit has gotten in the city. All of these backgrounds have these just awesome little details. Compare any of the backgrounds from 1 and compare them to any of the backgrounds from 2. It's basically night and day. I just can't get over just how much of an improvement this is over the first game's backgrounds. The in-game character models also have a little bit more detail to their textures. Capcom also decided to give the CG cutscenes another go, and to be fair, considering the hardware, these still look pretty decent. Sure, the character models still look like action figures, but there's actual motion capture in these cutscenes, and it makes the animations look more convincing. The direction with these scenes is also quite good, with nice camera angles here and there, the lighting isn't bad, and these all run at a consistent 30 FPS while doing all of this. So while these cutscenes are obviously quite dated nowadays, I'm still a little impressed with them. Moving on to the soundtrack, it's very good. I don't know what else I can say other than it's the same iconic high quality stuff you would expect from the first one. I don't know what else to say. Although, I think I might prefer the first game's OST a little more purely because the game's soundtrack is one that I remember a lot more. But the soundtrack is better objectively speaking.
So now that I have gone over the game itself, we need to see how this game ends. I can't wait!
So, throughout this story, we have bumped into Annette Birkin and William Birkin. Annette is here to make sure that no one gets their hands on the G-Virus. Near the end of Leon's story, Ada gets injured and leaves Leon no choice but to go on his own and try to escape.
I know I've only known you for a short period of time, but I really enjoy being with you. I know. I'm not capable of caring about anyone.
Okay then. In Claire's story, Sherry goes missing and also happens to have a G-Virus sample in her necklace thingy. But who cares because it gets thrown away in lava, no biggie. And it's not as interesting as the twist in Leon's story anyway. Ada turned out to have not been one of the good guys and is instead here for a G-Virus sample.
You bitch!
Unfortunately for her, she is shot by Annette and falls down into the abyss. Bye-bye! On a side note, the reason why I think Annette is just stupid in this game is because she knew damn well just how bad the G-Virus was, and so didn't want it to get into the wrong hands. fair enough. But why protect it in a way as if you are proud of it? You seemed pretty not proud about it the first time we met you, so why are you now protecting it as his legacy in a way that makes it sound like he cured cancer or something? Also, even if I didn't get this scene since it shows up in Claire A instead, why the fuck would you run up to your mutated as fuck husband like that? Look at him! Look at him! He has giant claws, for fuck's sake! What did you think was going to happen? To you Resident Evil 2 PS1 veterans watching this, if there is anything that I misinterpreted about Annette, anything that I got wrong, then I thoroughly encourage you to call me out. Moving on. Claire has to set up the train to escape after finding Sherry in this one room with lava being attacked by Mr. X. The reason why I bring this all up is to explain why Mr. X looks like that now. After an incredibly bullshit boss fight, the train is all set to go. Leon jumps on the train with Claire and Sherry and they all live happily ever after. Psych! William Birkin isn't quite done yet! After shooting him with every bullet we got, they decide to stop the train and escape before the train blows up from self-destruction, finally ending William Birkin. The game then ends with Claire needing to find her brother.
We've got to move out.
Now what's the problem? Is something following us?
Hey, we still have a job to do. Let's go.
Go? Oh, you can't mean...
Chris, I have to find you.
I will be completely honest, I think that this game is a little overrated. I know you guys hate me for saying that, but while this game does improve from the first game in presentation, story, acting, kinda, and quality consistency with the map design, this game also stumbles in a few places too. Mr. X is comically unthreatening, along with this final boss fight being weirdly bullshit. The balance between open and linear is not quite done as well. The lack of puzzles is a shame, and the police station is simply not as good of a starting map compared to the Spencer Mansion when it comes to design. This game is still really good though, and the zapping system is cool, but when stacked up against the rest of the series, I kind of find it hard to see why there are still some folks out there that consider this to be the peak of the series, when I can honestly name 5 games in the series right off the bat that I would honestly recommend over this one. But I suppose that I do still like this a little better than 1, but it comes dangerously close now. On the scale of quality, the original Resident Evil 2 gets a strong 7 out of 10. Take it.
That's the review. I hope you enjoyed it. This was Max Rab you just watched. See you on the other side.